Welcome to everyone, and I feel really honoured because I'm on your side of the couch tonight, Dee. For those that haven't met me before, I'm Sandi Givens, and I'm a proud member of ILP, and I'm very pleased that we've flipped seats tonight because our topic is to talk about the difference between OD, or organisation development, and L&D, learning and development. And man, I wouldn't want to answer the question, so I'm glad you're prepared to. So the lovely Dee Backman-Hoyle is going to take the respondent seat tonight.
Absolutely.
Which is great.
Hi everyone, it's absolutely a thrill to be here tonight, and it's even more of a thrill to be on the other side to sort of share, I guess, years of understanding and awareness of around the difference between those two subjects, which is OD and L&D.
Okay, so let's hop in.
Absolutely.
OD stands for organisation development.
Yeah.
A lot of us have, but probably all of us have heard that.
Yeah.
Some people here may have even studied it a bit. From your perspective, what is organisation development all about? Tell us about the field of study around that, and what's the work of an OD professional?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess if I break it down into two very core streams of focus and activity, there's two parts. One is understanding strategy, structure, process, and also building towards capabilities. So it's understanding the O part, which is organisationally, being aware of the things that an organisation is aspiring to achieve, if not the organisation, a business unit is aspiring to achieve, where that aligns to the overall strategy of the business, and how do we build a structure or redesign a structure. So the O part of it has a lot to do with change and change management. It has a lot to do with capability, as far as what are the current capabilities of the workforce and what are the future capabilities that we're needing to prepare for with the workforce. So it's the tactical, tough sort of decision making around structure, strategy and systems inside the organisation. The D part of it stands for development, which is about people. And so when organisational development started, there were very core programs around building business and innovation and enterprise, etc. OD came in and said, but we've got to understand that humans exist inside our organisations. So we need to think about the humanistic side of our organisation, how people function. Because if we build a system that's fit for purpose for robots, people won't be successful.
Yeah.
But if we build a system that's fit for purpose for humans and therefore understands the nuance of what humans need to do to flourish in the workplace, then we can build it that way. So there's two sides to it.
Yeah.
There's the task and output and deliverables of understanding organisational systems. And then there's the people side of it, of understanding, and I would suggest psychology of people and different fields of study around psychology, sociology of people.
So let me see if I've got this. To me, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds to me like it's a higher level picture of what's got. Okay, whew, glad I got that.
Yeah.
But you're talking so much about people. If you could summarise the difference between OD and L&D in like one sentence, because when I hear people, I go, oh, what do they need to learn to be able to achieve the goals of the organisation or that business unit or whatever? If you could say in one sentence, what's the difference between the OD focus and the L&D focus? What is that?
I would say, and it's sort of a grandiose statement to say, it's a macro consideration which is about productivity and engagement. So if I think about overall results around performance and productivity and how our people feel about working here, that's a strategic consideration for the organisation. As an L&D professional, I'm coming in to a sort of a more refined thinking around what are the skills, abilities, behaviours and results I need someone to do within their job. So one is sort of set more broadly in an organisational setting, and one is set around more of an individual need or a group need as such.
So I know you and I talked about the questions I was going to ask you. Can I ask a question without notice?
Yeah, of course.
Because my question is, if you go in to talk with a client or a prospective client about their L&D needs, is there sometimes a part of your brain going, oh no, we need to chunk up, we need to think from a bit, and how do you manage that then?
Always. I guess one of the challenges is, as an L&D professional, we're often guided by the client around what they've decided is their solution.
Yeah.
So they will give us an RFP, you know, or they'll give us a
An
brief
RFP?
Request for proposal.
Oh, okay. Right.
Acronyms.
Acronym I didn't know.
I know. We're full of them, aren't we? So we tend to sort of go, we read a brief that is determined by internal experts, I guess, that have done things like internal needs analysis and an understanding of what's going on inside their business. This is what we want, can you deliver it? Now, as an L&D professional, we'll go in and we'll think about what are the ways that we would be able to deliver that, but we are often not ready to have a conversation with that client about, help me understand even further where that sits within, upstream, a business outcome that you're wanting to achieve that may sit under a priority in the strategy, or something that you're gearing for towards future workforce demands.
So what's ringing in my head now, and I'd be really interested to chat later with the people here tonight, that I often have bells ringing in my head when I'm talking to a client or a prospective client about this learning program that we're implementing, perhaps over a 4 to 6 or 12 month period, thinking, yeah, but is this going to be supported organisationally and within the culture of this place? Is that the kind of thing then that is more of the OD perspective?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I guess one distinction with OD is that it comes from a field of thinking that is evidence-based through research. So one of the things in organisational development is that you would never go to a senior decision maker and say, I have a hunch or an idea or a concept or some thinking around this. You would have to present it with, the research shows us that, based on the numbers in your workforce, based on future demands, based on some of the future trending in this industry, these are some of the considerations that you need to be aware of.
So you did a whole lot of study in the field of OD.
Yeah.
So where did you do that, or more particularly, I guess, is what changes have you seen in the field of OD since you did that study?
So my first postgrad as an adult was in innovation and enterprise, which I loved because it was hardcore and it was all about business.
Hardcore.
I know, because, you know, I'm one of these sort of weird people who loves concept and detail at the same time. So it was really interesting.
All right, darling.
I know.
Your brain will recover.
My brain is blowing a bit around this. So I was doing innovation and enterprise, the Masters of Innovation and Enterprise at Swinburne, and I was loving the business focus around it, but terribly missing people amongst it. And someone said to me, well, you need to be looking at OD. Now, I'd enrolled in psych twice, organisational psychology twice, and I kept going to these sessions thinking, they're giving me a history of psychology and they're not preparing me for the future. So I found that psychology for me was about an awareness of concepts and theories that had gone that I might be able to add and think about with a client. But I wanted something that was going to future-proof me for, and what is next for the client and what do I need to prepare for. So I went into OD. That was at Swinburne University. Now this was back, I finished in about 1998. And I don't think they do it there anymore at Swinburne. I think it's moved to RMIT. But in 1998, it was sort of a breed of facilitator come lecturer come trainer that was sort of leftover hippies from the Gestalt sort of movement.
A very weird picture in our minds.
Yeah. So, you know, it was... So I sort of came from more of a hardcore business environment, and I would be going to these OD sessions where people would be stopping and reflecting and considering things within a fishbowl experience with one person in the middle. And I kept thinking,
That'd be very lonely.
what is this? Why are they doing this? What's the point here? You know.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that in the earlier days, and I mean OD's been 30 plus 40 years in its making, but if we look at OD originally, which was how do we add the humanistic awareness and the systems thinking for people inside a business, and now I guess I think about people like David Cooper-Ryder who does appreciative inquiry and those types of things. That's the new way of how do we get a collective group of people together and bring voice to the centre of the room and ascertain the meaning of that voice and how do we add it for value. So it's shifted quite a bit where there was sort of, again, the old way of the sage on the stage, the professor and the holder of all the knowledge.
Yeah, I have the wisdom, you sit down, shut up.
That's it. To getting together and going, we start from where we start from, we are where we are. Very much sort of around, I guess, some of the mindfulness concepts that we're all embracing these days.
So this thing called humanistic management, I think we know what it means, but maybe you could explain it to us. And does it really exist? Does it really happen out there in the real world? I said pointing at your books, but out there.
Oh, look, I live in hope and optimism, but I'm very aware of the reality of the true cost to business at the moment. It's about $14 billion annually in Australia at the moment, with things like workplace stress payouts, mental health challenges in workplaces, bullying and harassment, all of those things that if early intervention or good support mechanisms at the earlier part, which is an OD piece, could be put in place, we could reduce that dramatically. I think there's also a huge pushback from the younger generations that are going, I won't be spoken to or treated like you spoke or treated my father or mother. I'm different from that. And I think that we are facing some major trends of change, such as the ageing workforce population, the Asian involvement in inclusion in our region, and technology. So we can no longer behave the way we got away with behaving. So humanistic management is, do I understand what human needs are, mine and yours, and do I understand the systems that we all have to coexist within in the business?
So that sounds like maybe the push is going to come from within organisations, from the employees, and particularly some of the younger ones saying, hey, that's not right. So and we talk so much about employer of choice and retaining top talent and everything. This has got to be a piece in that puzzle then.
It's all around engagement, because you will find that particularly under 40s will go, unless I have an alignment to my values and my core purpose, I don't see the need for me to potentially need to coexist with you. So there's going to be a real sort of alignment to values-based leadership, humanistic leadership with that.
So what part do values play, or helping an organisation look at their values or be clear about their values and articulating them? How much a part of that is played in OD? Quite
a bit. I think that there's some jaded views around organisational values being a set of 6 words that the executive came up with after
and they're up at the reception desk.
Absolutely, on the back of toilet walls and all sorts of places. The values are not real unless the people have determined that that's the way they want to live and be held accountable for. So the set of words are just junk. They don't mean anything. But the way that people actually behave and interact with each other speak the values of the organisation.
And is that part of an OD professional's role, that they'd say, okay, you got value of honesty here, or a value of trustworthiness or respect? Let's talk about the behaviours that actually demonstrate those
So that would
values.
be about the measurability of that. So saying at a corporate conference, these are our 6 values, whilst most of the workforce sit there sniggering in their chairs, and being able to say, and being able to say, how do we know that this is real and it resonates with our staff? Because we did the work, which was about collaboration and consultation, and not consulting. You know, I love the consulting, which is this will be our values, embrace them, eat them, do them, versus what's really important for you? Why is it important for you, and how do we build this into the context and the culture of the workforce? It's the longer way to go to get to the values, but it's got sustainability that goes with it.
Yeah.
So that's a change management piece.
Which is more under
OD. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're here talking about On the Learning Couch as part of the Institute for Learning Professionals. So a lot of us here are what we would call ourselves L&D professionals. What we would like to know is, how could we benefit by understanding some more about these OD concepts? How can we actually use that in our work and in our relationships with our clients?
Yeah. Look, I think good L&D people, and I would like to think I'm one of them as well, they don't take things necessarily on face value. So, you know, they have the I guess, confidence and courage to say to a client, where's your evidence to suggest that this is actually a true need, rather than something that someone's got on a bit of a rant with and want to roll through the organisation. So if I use an example, service excellence is something that's often, you know, sort of grabbed. If we've got to spend some training and development dollars, let's use it on service excellence because it feels quite tangible.
Best practice.
Absolutely.
Best practice.
And so what we need to understand is, again, from a good needs analysis, what's driving that? What's that about? Rather than just taking it at face value, this is what we need, can you roll it out? You seem to be the face and the name of service. Why don't you come in here and, you know, spray our people with your view of service?
Yeah.
The difference would be, it's never about us as an L&D professional. It's about how we untap for the learner what their needs are, and more importantly, sustainability and transference of that learning. So as an L&D person, my job can never be done when the training contract of the day is done.
No.
And it's also about having the courage, and many of you would know this too, to say that an event is not going to get you an outcome of change. And I don't think until we all get together and say, we've got to be a bit braver collectively as a group of peers and say, I get you want to do the event. What's your budget? Why is that your budget? Let's get more creative about how we can do what we can do with your budget, but it may not be the one-day program as such.
So in areas like that, does the line between an L&D professional and an OD professional kind of blur or meld a bit?
Yeah, I think so.
I think a lot of us here would do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, we were chatting beforehand, and
so I think that if you add, I guess, the language of consultancy services with an L&D professional who delivers out an experience or an event with some maybe back support and all sorts of things, we need to be able to say we have knowledge, we have expertise, we know that certain things work. We also want to be recognised for knowing that as well. And I think collectively we sometimes give away so much wisdom without seeing it as value adding in consultancy services. So where you may need to, when we do our proposals, some of us will put in, and I certainly have over the years, 20, 30 hours into writing a solution and a proposal. That level of expertise is quite rare, and we need to be able to sell it as something of value to an organisation rather than give it away inside the proposal.
Yeah. So here's a sort of two-pronged question. Given that clearly there are distinctions between OD and L&D, question one is, do you think it's important for us to communicate, or for our clients to understand, when we're coming from an OD perspective and when we're coming from an L&D perspective? Is it important for our clients to be clear about that? And I guess, is it important for us to be clear about that? For instance, I haven't done any study in OD, and yet I've done a lot of the things that you're talking about now in terms of, rather than just somebody saying, okay, we need a day of team building, I dig a lot deeper. You know, what are you wanting to see as the change, and how does this fit within the organisation, and are other business units within the organisation doing this, and how is your group going to get supported around this, blah, blah, blah. And I never would have thought that that was necessarily OD stuff I was doing. So back to my question, because I've rambled on now. not very good Oprah, am I, dear? But is it important for me to be clear and or my clients to be clear when I'm talking through an O&D, from an OD perspective versus L&D?
All right, so yes, and to that. So I would see that if I'm not perhaps scaling up the overall responsibility and scope of an OD professional, which can be everything from recruitment, it can be onboarding, it can be absolutely every stage of the organisation, it can be future capability preparation and planning. It works very closely with HR, it should work closer with strategic decision makers.
Okay.
So if and the, wanky words again, macro big decisions at that level there.
Yeah.
For those of us that go, we've got that stuff, we understand the strategy, we understand the direction the organisation wants to go. I use that in my L&D work to, I would suggest, add value to our clients. And I don't think there's a future for people who don't understand the nuances of systems in organisations and processes, and understanding that when we put someone through a program of any sort, they've got to go back to a system and a series of processes and structures.
And how's what's happened
how
here
does
going to
that
fit
plug
there?
in with that? So
Can
both,
I be devil's advocate though? Sometimes the client just doesn't want to hear all that. They just need their team motivated. And if we start talking about, yeah, but where does this fit in the organisation and the shifts and aren't they going to go, no, don't want to hear?
Yeah.
And then we might maybe lose the work. And,
that's the choice. And I guess, if I'm being brutally honest, in the early days when I set up my business, I was happy to be a training prostitute and do as the client says and take the money. Because you're setting up a business.
Yeah.
And I guess the challenge becomes when you want your name and your brand to be represented in a way that has the sort of level of expertise and status, not in an egotistical way, but to say, and I would say to a client, if that was the case, I have 3 or 4 names that I think would be perfect for you.
Because I think what you're talking about is creating meaningful change.
Yeah.
Well, meaningful learning.
Yeah.
And change that is real and delivers real value to the people involved and the organisation as a whole.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's not to say, I would suggest that if someone gave me sort of enough scope to say, I want to give you a day, I want to give you a group of people, and I want 2 or 3 outcomes, then I would still say, okay, let's get creative together and let's think about ways that we could create certain opportunities and learning environments and what can you do at the back end, and let's think about pre-framing at the front end. And so I wouldn't still see that as an event. I would see that I'm giving a bit of latitude to do some creative thinking. But if someone said, here's the scope, this is the audience, these are the 3 messages. By the way, I've got to tell you that the culture's pretty toxic, but I'd really like as the outcome for this group of people to walk away feeling inspired, enthused, re-engaged and energised by their workplace. I would just sort of go, well, find someone who sells LSD, quite frankly, because it's just not within my ability to do that.
It's beyond my powers.
Absolutely. And I think that comes with a bit of sort of, not that's being flippant and throwaway, but it's also about being able to say to the client, without being arrogant or rude, that's a lot to ask for.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there is anyone out there.
It's like, here's my toxic, dysfunctional team. Make them one big happy family. I've got 2 hours. Will that do? Yeah. Look, I know we're running out of time, so I've got 2 more questions I want to ask. Do you see yourself more as an OD professional or an L&D professional, or is it so embedded and ingrained in your DNA that you just come from both those areas of expertise and hard to distinguish for you?
Yeah, I would say it meshes together.
Yeah.
The frustrating part about it is that if you go in as an L&D person, it's very hard to upsell consultancy skills as an OD professional.
Good tip.
And you almost have to give that away as part of the value proposition and building of credibility.
That's a good tip.
And awareness of, building the trust and the can-do factor with the client. If you go in as an OD practitioner and then try and sell yourself as an L&D solution provider, you've got to be really careful. You're not sort of trying to do, and would you like to upsize it? Not trying to sort of sell something they're not ready to hear to start with. They've got you in there to talk about an L&D solution.
So how do you handle that stuff with your clients?
Listen, and tend to walk away with more questions to go back to. And, and that communication in the early days, I go, when I walked away, it got me thinking about. And that casualness of here's another 10 questions. And how are we measuring it? And what's the accountability in the measurement? And how do we measure impact?
Because what you're doing when you do that is building the trust and building their perception of you as an expert. Like, my gosh, those are the questions. We hadn't even thought of those questions.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So
the other thing, Sandy, I think that we don't understand, and ILP did a piece of research, I think it was last year, if not the year before. Many of us who have been doing what we've been doing for many, many years are dealing with people at a level where, and I mean level in a respectful way, that they're coming into their learning and development coordinator, administrator. They don't have anywhere near the depth and breadth of exposure that we do. So we go in there to sell them something, and in a way we've got to be careful we don't bamboozle them and potentially pull down this shield that says, I'm still learning this stuff, don't make me look stupid.
Yeah, and don't confuse me.
Yeah. So, and I think the average was 5 years or something like that. Jeff, I think it was about 5 years. And our average was 15 plus-ish or something like that. So we've got to understand that there's this meeting point where we can share with them information, but there's an education piece to gently bring people with you without feeling like, oh my God, this old chook turned up at our business and she lectured me on how we should do things.
Yeah.
It's about, I don't know if you've seen this, but it could be interesting for you to look at, that gentle slipping it in rather than, why would you think that way?
Yeah.
They don't know what they don't know. And I mean that very, very respectfully.
So that leads to my final question, which is, for all of us here who don't want to go off to Swinburne or its equivalent to do 2, 3, 5 years of study.
Sitting in a fishbowl being
sitting in a fishbowl
deconstructed.
with those hippie throwbacks or whatever they were.
Yeah.
What's a good first step for us to take? Or where do we start learning just a little bit more about some of the concepts and principles involved in OD? Even so we can get our heads around some of the language that is used.
Well, I would say field. Even as learning and development professionals, we must understand the research in what's happening in learning and development. There are, let the academics do the research for us.
Yeah, but where do we get...
And we can access the research from the academics. So we go to major universities, we go to think tanks, we access information from people who are doing all sorts of projects and trials and programs. So we have to be able to go in and say, I'm influenced this way because of the evidence and the research that's showing us this information. That type of conversation leads you to the point of saying, I can talk at a strategic level.
Yeah. But please forgive me, I'm a HAL learner. So you mentioned university, like where? I mean, do I just pick Melbourne University and...
Oh gosh, so if I think about the types of programs...
Can I Google? Can I read a book?
Definitely Harvard is probably one of the go-to places.
Okay.
Stanford, I would still go for the sort of Ivy League US base because of the volume.
And are Australian companies influenced by US-based statistics and research?
Yeah, I would say so still.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would say so.
Resounding yes from the audience too.
We've got some massive, am I going to say this right, MOOCs?
Yeah.
At the moment, you can be tutored by the world's best thinkers, academic thinkers, and they're shocking presenters, most of them. But we can be given their insights and information, and there's nothing stopping us. It's never about plagiarism, it's about saying, I'm referencing the key thinkers in this area, And that's what they're demonstrating to us, and we can take that to our clients on their behalf.
That's what I like about you. Every time I hang with you, I learn stuff.
Oh, thanks, Sandy.
And we've all learned stuff from you tonight.
Thank you.
And all
I've
these
loved
people
it.
have learned stuff too from you.
Yeah.
So on behalf of everyone here and ILP and me personally, thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.